Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview. On today's show, I'm excited to welcome back Linsay Clavatone. She's the director of dealer relations at CarGurus. We have a lot to talk about, including their consumer insights report, which we're going to jump in to give dealers insights on how to deal with car buyers and inventory management in 2025. Linsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Excited to be here as always.
All right. So, Linsay, so much has changed over the last few years. We're finally back to what I would consider a competitive, inventory rich dealer lot. And selling cars is once again difficult. One of the topics I want to talk about is how CarGurus is leaning in to serve their dealers better and giving them some insights and strategies to help them sell cars. Let's open up with this consumer insights report. Is this something that you do every year, or is this something new?
No, we've been doing this every year, and typically it's published end of year after all of the results have been compiled and put together in a nice, beautiful presentation for our dealers, which you can find on our Dealer Resource Center online. So if you're listening and you want to read the full report, definitely get over there and you can download the full PDF.
Now, one of the reasons I love reading these reports is because even though there's a lot of fancy numbers and stats, there's always a couple things that jump out of the report. As you and I talked about this report, there's some things that even help refresh your memory, having come from retail. One of the things that I loved reading that 82% of the people in the survey were completing their entire buying process within a month and 42% in 2 weeks. Man, to me, that sounds like dealers better have the right cars in stock, merchandised properly. Their sales process have to be tight. This idea that maybe you have 90-day workflow, this sounds like dealers who are really focused on wowing the customer in those early days and weeks have a competitive edge. How do you read that piece that consumers are buying cars faster?
It is something that I think has accelerated, post-pandemic, right? We got into those behaviors. We kind of taught the customer they needed to move faster. I think now they're also realizing it's a better experience when they shorten the window and who they're talking to at any given time. So for me, this one really translates into, yes, you want to have the right inventory. Yes, you want to have the right price, but you're getting the lead because of those things. So today it's all about how you grab the attention and focus of that consumer immediately after getting that lead in your system. And so, you have to have a really tight process for outreach after those things land in the CRM, getting to that customer under 15 minutes at max. And I think 5 to 10 is probably more of the ideal window because it gives you just enough time to digest everything that's in there and then start your outreach. And we can certainly talk about some of those outreach strategies that I've seen really successful dealers doing. But yeah, we got to move fast. We got to get to them and get them anchored to your dealership instead of someone else.
Linsay, one thing that I thought was interesting, the 42% within 2 weeks, my brother Glenn and I have been looking at defection data powered by some of the urban science reports that OEMs use and dealers can leverage directly. And it seemed across many of the dealers that we work with, after 14 days, their lead follow-up or their lead engagement really drops off. Yet, oddly enough, it's where the defection peaks. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen those cartoons where someone's digging in a mountain for the tunnel of gold and they're like 6 inches away and they stop and they're like, I'm tired. It obviously there are people who are buying right away. I'm one of those persons. When I decide I need a car, I'm buying within 7 days. That's me. And most of that is just who am I going to buy it from and some other odd things that I think about that maybe not everyone does, like not to, aggravate one of my clients that I should buy the car from. But yet the other half is really buying in weeks 3 and 4 and 5. What are you telling dealers about not giving up after that first week or two? Because it seems to be a pattern. It's human nature. How do we help dealers not give up on half of the sales that are in their CRM?
That is such a great point. I love the visual of that, like digging and you're 6 inches away, right? That's pretty powerful. So for us and the team, we have been working with dealers on building out longer term follow-up that is built into your CRM workflow. So we can no longer rely on people to remember, especially some stores, let's say they have 500 or 1,000 leads coming in every month. No individual is going to remember follow up for 30 days for all of those people. And
Right.
so really making sure that you have a cadence of follow up built into your CRM that is not necessarily automated, because we want that human touch. That's why people get hooked and they want to buy from you. But it's in there and it's easy and fast. So that's one. I think two is if you have the capability to leverage some sort of AI responder and follow-up, I wholeheartedly support that. And I've seen a lot of dealers having success with it, especially in those off hours. So when you have people who aren't working overnight or maybe on a Sunday, those things really keep consumers engaged. And so you can have better longer term follow-up without as much, lift or maybe potential headcount resources inside your store.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. As we look at some of the AI engagement tools or even outsourced human call center, we see dealers who are closed on Sunday walk in Monday morning with appointments booked. And of course, this is revenue that maybe they wouldn't have had. But since they have the tools and the resources to help people around the clock, it works. One of the other pieces from the Consumer Insights report, and I think you said it was a reminder, not only to yourself, but you really want all dealers to remember, is that consumers surveyed were very flexible on maybe moving to another year car or a color or model. There was one thing that they weren't flexible on. I'll let you share that, but I want to talk on this point as a reminder to dealers when somebody submits a lead on that used 2021 Ford F-150, if your mindset in the store is, oh man, that just sold. Man, I'm going to disappoint that person. You're going to lose. If you have a mindset that says, okay, they were looking for a fairly priced truck with certain capacity, before I respond, let me see what else I have before saying, I'm sorry, that car has been sold. Linsay, consumers, and I just know myself, I'm very fluid. I think most cars are made fairly well. They're not rusting out like, and that's just aging myself when cars did rust out. I mean, man, a lot of the manufacturers are making fairly reliable, decent cars. So the consumers are more flexible, and the dealers shouldn't get pigeonholed on that one VIN number that they submitted a lead on. How do you interpret it?
Absolutely. And I think that's hilarious. When I tell people I sold a Pontiac Aztec as my first car ever, I aged myself well. So with that, I digress. So the one thing that consumers are not flexible on, so here's an important piece, is vehicle condition. So They will not budge on, how well is this car been maintained? What might I have to pay for down the road that I'm not prepared to do? So vehicle condition is full stop. They want that. That's going to be a non-negotiable. However, every single other category that we surveyed, and I'll quickly run through them, they were more flexible than not. And so I think it kind of busts that myth or assumption that we have that, like you said, when a lead comes in a specific car, that's the only thing that consumer wants. And I personally was also surprised by these results. So the other categories that they're flexible in is new versus used, price and budget, warranty, the time it takes to buy it or obtain it and get it in their driveway, make and brand, the location or the distance the dealership is from them, and features and trim level. So all of those categories, consumers are telling us like, hey, we're kind of open. We can have this discussion. So how do you put that into action? Like, stats are cool, great information. What do you do with it? And for me, this one is all about scripting that your sales, BDC, or internet teams are going to use when they first engage with that consumer and start having a real conversation. And I don't necessarily mean it's like the first text you send or in an email. I think it's like a voice-to-voice conversation you're having with the consumer to build in flexibility, regardless of whether that car has been sold or not. Like, maybe that car is available. It's totally ready to go. You've had it for 30 days, like you want to sell it, right? And it's all about asking them like, hey, if I had another vehicle, similar mileage, capacity, fit your lifestyle and budget, would that be a consideration for you? Would be open to having that conversation? And I think that there are some dealers today who do this really well, especially stores that have a very high, quick turn time, high velocity dealership. But for the most part, I do not hear this when I've been in stores and when my team has worked with our customers.
I recently traded in my little baby. It's a 2020 Corvette when it first came out with a rear engine. 4 years later, 4,000 miles, right? So really well kept and maintained, always in the garage. And, I know that people talk about price helps determine where they buy, right? What might direct. But for me, I wanted to get as much money for my baby. And I was maybe in the mindset, well, look, the car I'm going to buy, there's a tight range on what that car is going to sell for. That there's less margin, say, there. And so I went to a couple sites and, there was about a $6,000 range. And for me, I'm not sure if anybody did a good job of saying, look, I know, you've taken good care of your car and that, getting the maximum trade, these are only ranges. I could do much better by seeing the car, whatever. I don't feel like when I put in the different trade values, I got that, which was more of like, well, here's the range. It could be, 53,000 to 60,000. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty big range, So, I also want to let dealers know that price, transparency, okay, we've heard that, but it's the overall deal, right? And I think consumers are very interested on what this is going to, what the final product is going to be, who feels the most collaborative. And, where I ended up trading and purchasing was the person who was the most collaborative. Did the survey talk at all about, the trade-in process or the deal process? What are consumers in the survey saying about price and maybe deal value?
So price and deal value continues to still pop as one of the, 1 and 2 most important things for them. And I think what we are seeing is that, and it's kind of interesting, when consumers are in the market to only sell a vehicle. So let's just say they're looking to shop their car, they don't need it, or maybe they're just looking, strictly on selling first, and then they'll talk about what might come after that. We actually have really pretty high satisfaction rates and growing because dealers, I think, are getting a lot better at this. And right. I think one of the reasons why that is because it's a cleaner, more simple kind of transaction.
Mm.
And of course, everyone's motivated to acquire cars off the street, as you should be. And so they're getting really good at that. I want to anchor on it's kind of interesting, right? Like consumers, of course, anchor on price, and dealers sometimes will also, when it's just a sell situation, anchor on like, hey, I can give you top dollar, I can give you this. But what underlying that, and you even said it, Brian, it's about the ease of that process. And ease of process doesn't always translate too fast. You can have an easy process that might take a little bit of time or take a couple of days. But I want to really bring that home for dealers. Like you may not have the most competitive sell price, right? Like you may choose to sell your car to a dealer that's not giving you top dollar, but because they made it so easy to do business with them, you will make that choice. And so I think that is paramount to what dealers need to do today. I think oftentimes, even just in your regular kind of selling environment, we talk about, oh, this car's great, it has these features, like one owner, all of those things are important. But I actually think talking about the process of buying a car and how easy it can be for that consumer is just as important as the car itself.
Listen, I'm going to back it up with some survey data that I'm now doing for some dealer groups. We're taking the defection data, right? The people who bought elsewhere, we're sending them a Survey Monkey survey. And it's one of the questions is, did you bring in a trade? And if they say yes, one of the follow-ups is, how is our price compared to the competitor? And a lot of people saying about the same. So if they say it's about the same, there's a follow-up question that says, why did you buy somewhere else if the trade-in price was the same? And the majority of people are saying they made the trade-in process really easy. And, so there we go again, as you start to understand the impact of friction in the sales process, people are somewhat flexible. They want to feel some level of transparency, some level of ease, some level of control, pretty flexible. But when they feel there's no flexibility or no transparency or no control, that's when, everyone's defenses get turned up. Linsay, you mentioned your role and as a director of dealer relations, and you and I were talking that things like post-sale helping dealers with their CRM workflows and post-sale doing more education on the new reports you have, right? So market demand, how they're acquiring cars, how they're pricing cars, how their turn rate. There's new tools and dashboards. Give me a little high level. It seems that CarGurus really wants to lean in and provide dealers with more of the insights that you have from your wealth of data from all the shoppers on your site.
That's absolutely true. And that is the most exciting part of my job. Because of course, as you said, I came out of retail. I lived the experience, and I have a ton of respect for how hard dealers need to work and all of the things that they need to know to operate. And so being able to help support and build out our capabilities on the CarGurus side has been truly exciting for me. So when we get into the nuts and bolts of it, really what we are looking to do is provide a really solid life cycle experience on our products, and give more power to the dealer in an automated way. So of course, we love to talk to our dealers. Our account teams are phenomenal, but dealers don't always have the time to talk to us, right? So how do we get that information to them where they are? So we're pushing new reports into the dashboard. Some of these reports are dependent on the package you're in. So if you're listening, you're like, hey, I haven't seen this, call your rep, talk to them about it. But we have really like 4 core reports in there today. So merchandising health is all about, flagging you if cars are missing photos, if you need to update trim and equipment. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone from my team in a store who has looked through inventory, made a few tweaks on what those cars had and jumped IMV categories. So coming from good to great or fair to good, all with a half an hour of attention.
That's right.
So that's one. We have maximized margin report. So knowing when you're able to raise your price without hurting your listings visibility, that's
right.
huge. Of course. And so that also feeds into our inventory acquisition report. So for dealers that are looking for support on what inventory should I be acquiring, and we get very specific. This is like year, make, model, sometimes down to color. We can tell a dealer, if you purchase this type of inventory, you're going to turn it in X number of days and potentially make this margin. So giving forward-looking insights is huge. So those reports are fascinating and amazing. Highly recommend digging into that. And then next best deal rating report, I think that's been in there for a while. So if you have your inventory, you want to look at the market, you can see that you might only be $200 away from being into a great deal. And if I'm a dealer, I'm going to take that opportunity because $200 is nothing. And vice versa too, right? You could be a great deal, but maybe you're really low on great deal price and you could bump up a little and still stay in that category. So getting smart about playing the game a little bit of, making sure you're being profitable, you're turning your inventory quickly, and you're getting the visibility you want with all of these insights that are available.
Well, Linsay, this has been a great conversation, and I bet the dealers who are listening would like to get access to the Customer Insights Report, because these insights, for some, are just a great reminder, right? Refresh our thinking, but others could really trigger some new thoughts in process and workflows. So remind our listeners how they can get a copy of the 2024 Consumer Insights Report.
If you search CarGurus Dealer Resource Center, you will find that page and you'll be able to navigate to an Insights tab, and the report is listed there. Absolutely. And there's, like you said, a wealth of information there. I will plug one other thing really quick. I just presented some of this to a dealer on the East Coast, and one of the things that their chief marketing officer said that I thought was really connected is like, hey, we want to talk about how we're the best, right? How our brand is the best in the market. They're a dealership who's been around for over 100 years. And so we have information on what buyers are looking for. So my suggestion was like, hey, talk about how you're the best in those categories, right? Number one, not surprisingly, was reliability. Number two was budget. How can you talk about your dealership that way? So there are a lot of different ways that you can use that information. If you need ideas, I'm always happy to talk about them, or your account team can for sure. So yeah, Dealer Resource Center, bookmark it, go there often. There's always stuff getting posted.
And I want to remind dealers that the wealth of data and insights that come from such a large marketplace are invaluable. Sometimes we get tunnel vision, we think we have everything right, but the phrase "the cheese has moved" has not withstood the test of time for a stupid reason. It means people get stuck. It's like, this is the cars we need to buy. And, oh, I don't buy those type of cars. Oh, hold on. The local demand report says you should be buying those cars. So at least do yourself a favor. Is it possible? Just ask yourself this question. Is it possible you missed something? Is it possible that you've grown lazy in an area? Is it possible your team would benefit from reading the insights report? I think so. And more importantly, how about having another set of eyes on your processes? Dealers can rely on the post-sale support of CarGurus as another set of eyes, another informed strategist. Just as Linsay mentioned, they see things, they hear things, they understand success. So don't miss the opportunity to learn from others. Linsay, you mentioned a wealth of resources, but if a dealer wanted to just ask you a question directly, is LinkedIn or an email address available? What's the best way for people just to touch base?
LinkedIn is great. I actually get several requests all the time, every month, every week. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I look at it all the time, so I won't miss it. And if it's something that I can't directly answer, I will absolutely get, you to the right place.
Wonderful. That is fantastic. I find LinkedIn is great for that. Well, Linsay, thanks for your time today. This week is the big show, NADA. I am sure CarGurus has a big booth, lots of things to share with their dealer clients and dealers who may not be on the platform. So just want to remind all dealers, don't forget to stop by the CarGurus booth and take a look at some of these reports. Take a moment to review the packages that you're on and understand maybe some new opportunities that this partnership could yield in 2025 to help you sell more cars in a digital age. And for the dealers who may be listening to this podcast for the first time, there are dozens, even hundreds of interviews with automotive leaders, people who are committed to automotive retail that I interview for educating dealers to connect dealers with new solutions and to challenge the status quo. So just search the Brian Pash podcast on your favorite podcast player and listen in to these great interviews. Linsay, if you had one thing to say to dealers as we close up our discussion today, what's one thing you're most excited about or focused on in 2025?
I think it's helping our dealer customers solve challenges and problems that they have, optimizing their capabilities. And when you have those questions or things that you're trying to solve for in the store, come to us, have that discussion with us. We have so much information that we can help you learn, that we can share with you. And I think it's just continuing to get those over the line and not kind of count us out as like, hey, this is a vendor and it's a partnership. And I understand that we're one of so many, vendors and partnerships that a dealer has. But I would want them to kind of open their mind to that. Maybe there's a new answer because there's so many things that we've been working on over the last year and 2 years that you might not even know about. So definitely come see us at NADA, reach out to your account team, reach out to me. We're here for you. We want you to succeed. We're really excited about 25.
And I don't know a single dealer who wouldn't like another set of eyes, another coach, someone who could bring value to them, especially as part of their existing relationship. Linsay, thanks for your time. You always articulate things so clearly. I love your passion for dealers and want to wish you and your team great success in the year ahead. And for all the dealers who are listening in, if you're going to NADA, make sure you stop by the CarGurus booth, stop by the PCG digital booth. I'll be there with my new book on automotive CDPs, a planning guide for dealers. And don't forget, we have the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference coming up at the end of April, the weekend after Easter in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, where we'll be talking about the latest digital marketing strategies to help dealers sell more cars in the digital age. Thanks for listening in, and I'll catch you next time on another podcast interview.